Okay, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I just want to say hello and welcome to those attending, those who've signed up. We've got a big number of people who've signed up for today's session. What we're going to do is we're going to give it a few minutes. We've got a few people to join us. Professor Brizman is about to join us as well. He just has some technical difficulties, so he's going to rejoin in a moment. But apart from that, we're more or less ready to go. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about different opportunities to study medicine in Europe. We're not going to be discussing things like the UK. We're not going to be discussing things like the States. This is very much focused on European studies, but that's not the only option out there. And we're not even going to have the chance really to cover all the different options that we at Medical Doorway and the ones that we don't work with have for you. So please, after this webinar today, treat it very much as an introduction to this as a subject. And then do reach out to myself or Professor Brizman, who'll be with me. He is online. He was just online with me a minute ago, but was having a problem with his background. So he will be joining us momentarily. Now, this is predominantly aimed for students who are in the Latin American region, but the information we're going to give today is not exclusive for those of you in Latin America. That's more just to do with the time zone that we're in, because I'm in the UK, it's 10 o'clock at night. It's about 6 p.m. just gone after in Sao Paulo. But as I said, if you come to this from any other part of the world, don't worry. The information is just as pertinent to you as it is for anyone from the Latin American region. Now, some housekeeping. We are going to be having plenty of time for questions and answers. The Q&A feature is active. So right at the bottom of the screen, you will see a Q&A. And Professor Brizman is joining us now. On the Q&A, if you've got a question at any point in the conversation, in the presentations that we're going to give this afternoon, this evening, please just type the question in. Doesn't matter when, just type it in. What will happen then at the end of the presentation, we will deal with all the questions one by one. We will read out the questions. That's for the benefit of everyone who's attending today, who hasn't had the chance to read the questions because they're just sent to us privately, but also for those who are watching on YouTube or on other social media, because we are streaming live both on Facebook and YouTube. So Professor Brizman's now arrived. There we go. And we can see him and not just his background now. So anyway, when we read out the questions, we're not going to indicate who's asking them. We'll keep that anonymous. This, as I said, is being streamed live on YouTube, live on Facebook, so we'll be there after this webinar is done. So those who are watching the repeat will have the opportunity to kind of listen to the questions that you have posed and hear the answers that myself and Professor Brizman have given to those particular questions. Okay? So anyway, we've got more people joining in as we go through. This is fantastic. And as I said, this is the first time that we've done this for the Latin American region. And it's great to see so many people signed up for this webinar, as well as many of the school counsellors that I know from times gone past. The plan was that we were going to be doing this before 2020. We had it all planned to come out to Brazil in 2020, run the exams, but then a small matter of a virus that kind of swept around the world put paid to that. In that period, however, we did have students from the region taking exams online, and that allowed us then to really know that there were more students across Latin America who were looking at different opportunities for medical education, and we wanted to offer them to everyone possible. So what we're going to do is I've got a short presentation, and during that presentation, I'll counterpoint it with different bits of kind of knowledge or different features. But what we're not going to do is just list off universities. We're going to have a few universities as examples, including Professor Brizman's university, Charles' first faculty in Prague, because that's one of the faculties we get most questions about from the Latin American region. And then I want to leave a good amount of time for questions and answers. We've got anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, and it's how long we take. But we're not going to be cutting you off early, despite the fact that Professor Brizman is currently coming to you from 11:05 at night in Prague, and I'm here a bit hour earlier in the UK. So as I said, anytime, any questions, please use the Q&A feature. So if it's okay with you, Eitan, I'm going to jump into the
Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon.
That I've got.
Echo.
Okay. And then if we can hear you.
Sorry, hi. Just good evening, good afternoon. And just to echo what Mr. Ambrose is saying, Our first rule is that all questions are good questions. There is no such thing as a silly question. So if you have a question, all we ask is that you are brave enough to ask it, because undoubtedly someone else is thinking the same question. So all questions are good questions. Ask anytime. We'll go through, spend as much time as you need. It's already late, so there's no point going to bed.
We're beyond bedtime now, Eitan, aren't we? Okay, I'm going to share my screen with everyone, and then we'll make a start, okay? So we're ready to go. Perfect. So everyone should be able to see my screen, and off we go. Right. What we're going to discuss today is studying medicine and dentistry, and we're going to say in the European Union. Yes, we've got Professor Brizman from the first faculty in Prague, which is one of the most popular medical schools in the European Union. But it's not the only medical school, and it's not necessarily the right medical school for all of you who are on this webinar this afternoon, this evening. And Professor Brizman will say that as well. He'd rather have you go to his faculty if it's the right program for you, and if it's not the right program for you for lots of different reasons, there are many other faculties that might be the correct fit. And right at the end of this actual webinar, we've got some pictures of some students that we've worked with for the last 6, 7, 8 years who are now doctors. And many of those students have graduated from Professor Brizman's university. Many have graduated from other faculties and then gone to have fantastic careers after graduation. So, in brief, what we're going to discuss is a little about who we are at Medical Doorway. Many of the college counsellors who work with at the schools know who we are. They're part of our network, they communicate with us, but you perhaps as students or parents might not know who we are, so we'll explain who we are, what we do. What are some of the considerations about studying medicine in Europe? Many of the students in the schools we come across are very used to the process of applying to, say, the UK for medical school, and perhaps to pre-med in the States or even Caribbean medical schools, and perhaps not looked at Europe before. So we're going to discuss how Europe applications may be similar and may be different to what you know already. Then we're going to look at some different universities, and we're going to look at the criteria which you should consider when choosing which medical schools you're going to be applying to. Because it's important. You're going to be spending potentially the next 5, 6, or even 7 years in some cases at a university. So it's important we get that right fit at the start. And I always tell students, if we help you find the right medical school early, your pathway through medical school will be smoother, your mental well-being through medical school will be smoother, and you're more likely to graduate having a positive experience of the program, the career, and the country in which you are spending the next 5 or 6 years of your life. And obviously, there's a financial commitment to it. We want to make sure that the money you're spending on tuition fees, living costs, and the expenses of being an international student are well spent. Coincidentally, we're going to look at a number of options which are significantly cheaper in the UK, the States, even the Caribbean, but give you access to a global career and have a proven track record of graduate employment. And we'll use some examples when we go through that part of the presentation. We'll then use certain universities to kind of counterpoint what we've discussed there and talk a little bit about transition to universities, and then give you some time to answer questions. If we want to go into Professor Brizman's university in a bit more detail, he has a presentation that we can sample from as well, and we'll be able to go over some aspects of perhaps studying at Professor Brizman's faculty in Prague. Now, our job at Medical Doorway, we are a counselling service directly funded by universities, by medical schools specifically. And why is that? Medical schools are all oversubscribed. Well, the good ones are, the ones that you will want to study at. So what we need to do is make sure that you're ready to go through that application process. Universities do not want to have a huge number of applicants to reject most of them. It's not a good use of your time. It's quite disheartening for you. It's also not a good use of the university's time. If we can help you find the right program early on, your likelihood of being accepted is higher. Also, the university's time is better well spent, because in some cases, we'll be actually bringing university staff to wherever you are. In this case, we're talking about Brazil. So it's good that we make the best use of their time and your time to make sure that we have pathways that are going to be linked to your overall profile. So we will spend most of our time listening. My first anatomy lesson wasn't when I was at university. My first anatomy lesson was given to me by my late mother, who said I had 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So our job is to listen to you and listen again. Identify what your priorities are about a choice of medical school. They can be different from different people. What are your aspirations about perhaps where you want to take your career afterwards? Because that can often determine which medical schools we should look at. Then we'll discuss with you the opportunities that presents, the challenges you're going to face, both in getting into the right medical school and, more importantly, studying at the medical school and graduating. And in many cases, when we have this discussion with you, sometimes studying medicine in Europe isn't the right option. We have many cases where we speak to students, and for one thing or another, it's not the right option. That can be a simple thing as you're not ready for it from an immigration perspective. Classic example I had today was a student who's in the UK, who's not British, who doesn't have permanent residency in the UK. So in that particular case, leaving the UK until they've got permanent residency is not the right decision. But for those of you that it is the right decision, we'll help you draw up a list of different university options, get you ready for the application process, and then if you are successful, be with you right through preparation for enrollment, arrival, enrollment, and then commencing your studies at medical school. We actually, as I said, we are funded directly by universities. We do all the hard work for you. The only thing we don't do for you is take entrance exams or appear for interviews, obviously. But we are here to arrange all aspects of your application. If you've got a personal statement, we'll read over it. If you're ready for an interview, we'll have a pre-interview meeting with you. And if in the case of certain universities that are entrance exams, we are expanding our operation to run those entrance exams in different locations around the world. So we are, next year in 2024, our plan is we're running entrance exams in the UK, Dubai, Qatar, and just as I was on this, preparing for this call, we had an email come in from a Qatari student in a school there who wants to register for our exam there. We've been running exams in Hong Kong, and we managed to get back there this year after the COVID restrictions were released. We also still have some online exams for certain universities, but the exciting thing is for 2024, we do have our very first exam now planned to take place in Sao Paulo, Brazil, for students from across the Latin American region. We'll help you prepare for those exams, and if you are successful, arrange all the necessary paperwork to get you through the migration procedures if you need to do that, and eventually enroll at medical school. We work directly with embassies. Myself and Professor Brizman will be meeting with embassies on a regular basis in different countries, and that helps smooth that process for you in terms of getting your documents ready for your visa, dealing with the Ministry of the Interior, because these are the things which often provide kind of barriers to a smooth process. Our job is to iron all of those out. So really, why are students thinking about Europe now when previously they were thinking about the UK? Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons, and then we're going to talk about some of the opportunities. Studying medicine in the UK, which is obviously our kind of background being British, the number of seats for international students in the UK are dwindling year on year on year. Some programs that had seats only for international students, like Brunel University and even Chester for their graduate entry program, their seats are now being taken by the UK authorities. So the number of international seats in the UK are reducing. There is a big pressure to train more doctors in the UK. So the amount of competition, both from that and from Brexit, has caused a significant reduction in the number of seats, and therefore, I think we're looking at about 15 to 16 applicants per place. The other thing as well is it's getting quite expensive to study medicine in the UK if you're an international student. The program I just mentioned before, Brunel, we did a webinar with them late last week. That program now is just under 50,000 British pounds a year. That's a significant expenditure when there are so many other options out there. So what you'll find is that when we start looking at programs in the European Union, and this is the thing, these programs are taught in English, and I'll explain how that works in a moment in the case of somewhere like the Czech Republic. You can get access to the career, access to the program that you've aspired to for a long time. And you will find, for the most part, these programs are globally recognized. And in the case of some programs, you'll find there are certain aspects of recognition that go further than others. And this is an important aspect to talk about when we're thinking about which universities are going to be correct for you. But the one huge factor is you will get a kind of a new international cultural and educational experience. Now, Professor Brizman is quite unique. He actually, at that time, he actually went to study in the Czech Republic before he returned back to Britain. As you'll see hear from his voice, he's not Czech. He's actually British, and he went to study medicine in the Czech Republic before he studied dentistry back in the UK. But he took a lot from his experience, and I don't need to speak for him, but he will definitely agree with me. He got a lot from his experience studying medicine in another country, which allowed him to progress his career perhaps in a different way than if he had done studying at home in the UK. Often for you being international students, if you are international students, this is not a new thing for you, but many of the students we work with, British students especially, this is a brand new thing for them, which adds to their overall profile when they're thinking about jobs and career opportunities afterwards. The one thing you're going to find now when we start talking about the universities, and I'm going to leave the figures until we get to those particular slides, is the tuition fees and living costs are going to be significantly lower than you were expecting us to talk about. Now, that doesn't mean the quality is any lower. That's important to state. Some of the programs we're going to talk about today are higher ranked than many British medical schools. In fact, some of the programs are higher than the British medical faculty I used to teach at many years ago. Also, you'll get a whole host of different experiences that you wouldn't have if you studied in the UK or in the States. And I'm going to talk about those as well. The final thing is employability. The COVID pandemic showed us no matter where you lived, there's a global shortage of doctors. This was quite remarkable. So even in countries where you felt were well serviced with doctors, medical practices were under pressure all across the globe. And that's really woken a lot of governments up. And now there's a huge, as I said, pressure to train more doctors in most developed and developing economies, governed by expectations of service users and service patients, but also the fact that we're all getting older and, more importantly, living with illnesses for longer. Diseases of civilization, diseases which previously would have shortened our lives are not shortening our lives just as much. Therefore, there's greater pressures on healthcare. We've seen this happening, especially in Hong Kong with some of the work we're doing there, but it is a situation across Europe, in the States, Canada, Brazil, etc. But medicine is a difficult degree. No matter where you go, medicine is tough, okay? You're going to be moving away from home for an extended period of time. Now, in the case of the UK, some of the parents and some of the students that we meet and talk to say that they want a university which has got a direct flight from various airports in the UK. But it's still a big deal for them. But if you're thinking about going from Brazil all the way to Europe and studying for the next 6 years, you can't just nip home at the weekend to get your laundry done or get some good local cooking. You'll be living somewhere for 6 years studying an extremely challenging course. It is financially cheaper, but you're going to find access to student finance is limited. You're also going to find there aren't really any significant scholarships. If you're looking for full fee scholarships or huge significant scholarships for medicine, you're not really going to find that in many medical schools at all. The other thing is getting used to a different way of working. Now, this is something which some students are used to and other students aren't used to. When I tell my British students that they're going to have to wake up and get to a lesson for 7:30 in the morning, it fills them with absolute dread, because you'd be lucky if most schools in the UK start at 9 o'clock. But when I have this conversation with students in the Middle East, in Qatar, where their schools start teaching at 6:30, 7 and they finish at 1, they're quite happy. They have a problem when you tell them they're not finished teaching till 7 o'clock in the evening sometimes. It's the other way around. But you're going to have to get used to a different system of working. If you've been used to, in school, having all of your material provided to you, spoon-fed information, you're going to have to change your approach and learn how to be a self-directed learner, because no one can teach you in the classroom all you need to know in anatomy, biophysics. You're going to have to blend your lecture-based work with your seminar-based work, with self-study, and be alert, perhaps if you are falling behind, dealing with professors, etc., so you can catch up to get on top of your work. Now, all the programs we're going to talk about are taught in English. In many cases, like in the Czech Republic, you'll wonder, how is that the case? Well, it's the case because they have 2 degrees. They have a degree in English for the international students, but the local students don't study on that program. They study on the program that is taught for them in the local language. So there are 2 degrees, one taught in the local language, one taught in English. They call them parallels because they're identical in every single way except the language in which they're taught. Now, this marks a very significant difference to, say, the UK or even the States. In the UK, if you're at my old university, there'll be 90 British students and 10 international students squeezed on top, all studying on the same program. But in a program, say, like Charles University in Prague, they'll have a local program, and the international program is separate from that. And I think around 140 to 160 students are on that particular program. So you'll see the number of seats that are available are significantly higher than if perhaps you were thinking about studying in the UK. But you may ask yourself, what about when I go into the clinical environment? Well, you will, on the first 3 years of any of these programs, be learning the basics of the local language so you can start to communicate with patients and families in the clinical environment. But please bear in mind, when you go into the clinical environment, say at year 3, you're not operating as autonomous practitioners. It's a very much observational, basic skill environment where you're starting to learn the different skills you will need when you start being more autonomous later on in your training and your career. But you'll always be supervised, and you'll always have someone who's bilingual to help translate if and when you need it. The last thing I say is don't limit yourself when you're thinking at this stage about your future career. Very important to keep your options open. A classic example is the British student that we've had who's gone to the Czech Republic to study dentistry, felt they were coming home, decided to stay in the Czech Republic because they fell in love with someone. Or the case of a student that we had last year who was ready to come and work in the UK or go back to Hong Kong where he was from, and he got given a fantastic opportunity to do research at Harvard and have a clinical residency in the St. Elizabeth Medical Center doing anesthesiology. These opportunities come around. Please make sure you're going to be open to them, because the more open you are to the different possibilities that are out there, and as doctors, the possibilities are vast, the more you will get from this experience and from the future career that you have. And the one thing I will say is being an international medical student gives you 2 major benefits. You are learning in an international environment. The people you study with will become your future medical colleagues and will be based all around the world. Even today, myself and Professor Brizman, he will talk about the students that he studied with who are now also consultant physicians, and they are in the States, in the UK, across the world. And he can actually now, if he wants to, go and visit them anywhere in the world. And when you're a student in your summer vacations, it's a fantastic opportunity to sofa surf and see a lot of the world. Also, if you're from a country that needs a visa to come and visit Europe, if you study in a major European country that's in the Schengen zone, you will have the chance across those 6 years in your vacation periods to see the whole of Europe that you would not have had if you studied at home or perhaps came to the UK or went to the US. The classic example is our students from Dubai who may have an Indian passport. They study, and in the summer, they can travel to Greece, they can travel to France, Spain, they can travel across Europe. And when they graduate, they've got their medical degree, their career is ready, but they've also had an experience for those 6 years that they simply wouldn't have had the opportunity to do at any point in their lives before or after. So let's look now at how we would go through choosing different universities. Now, I say there are 4 main factors. Now, don't take my word for it. There might be more factors for you. You might have more factors than these 4, but I would say it boils down to these main 4 factors. The first thing is, what is your educational profile? So what are you taking at high school? Now, are you taking a local Brazilian curriculum? Are you taking international baccalaureate? Are you taking the British curriculum, the US high school diploma with APs, the CBSE, whatever it may be? You will have certain subjects you're taking and with certain grade expectations. What we've got to try and do is make sure that that academic profile fits with what a university expects. In certain cases, in certain universities, they're going to require you to have certain subjects and then achieve certain grades to be made that offer eventually to enroll at medical school. In other cases, they don't have that system. Admission is based on an entrance exam. Now, does the content of your curriculum match what we're expecting to see on the entrance exam? If it does, perfect. It very rarely matches it 100%. So we've developed a preparation program to help you get ready for those exams, and we're about to go through a big expansion of that next month. So once we've had a chat about your academics, next thing is, what about you? What do you want from a university? Different people and even different countries want different things. When I give this presentation in Hong Kong, we constantly are asked about what's the numerical ranking of this university. It's a big deal in some parts of the world. What's the history related to this? So we could talk about some universities that can date their history back to 1348. We can date it back a couple of hundred years later to the 1500s, or we can talk about some universities that were established post-World War II. Does that matter to you? Next thing is, what are you expecting in terms of facilities? Some universities, and a lot of universities are doing this right now, are really promoting their clinical simulation centers, which are a fantastic resource to have when you're preparing for medical school. Some will say, well, we offer full body cadaveric dissection. Some universities say, we do this, we do that. How do you learn? Think about that. Are you an activist learner that gets stuck in from the word go, that might want a team-based learning type curriculum? Or are you a more theoretical person that likes getting a good grasp of basic theory first, then applying it clinically later on, who might who might align themselves to a more traditional medical curriculum? The final thing in that, I'd always say, is location. This matters hugely. Do you want to be in a capital city with all the distractions a capital city brings, and you can manage those? Or would you prefer to be in a smaller university town? We get students who appreciate what a capital city can offer them, and they like the fact that once they've left their lessons, they can have a degree of anonymity when they go for a coffee or go for a walk or go for a run or do something else. That for them is a particular aspect of a university life that's important for them. But other students, that notion that they might go all evening without seeing anyone they know fills them with dread. And they might be feeling they want to be in a more campus orientated or a smaller university type town. For them, being with people all the time that they can talk to, study with, is a very important motivating factor for their mental well-being, but also their success at medical school. It's important we have that conversation, because if we get the location right early on, you will have a more positive experience across the 6 years. One of the biggest factors is always budget. So I do spend a lot of time talking to parents about what's going to be affordable in terms of tuition fees and living costs, because bear in mind, it is, again, I'll say it again, it's a 6-year commitment and things can change over the 6 years. Sometimes a university might be a bit more expensive, but might have a friendlier cash flow payment strategy. Other universities might just be lower in terms of total tuition fees, okay? What I would say, on the whole, the higher the tuition fees in a particular city, also expect the living costs to be higher. The reason the tuition fees are often higher is because the costs of living in those places are higher and the staff have to be paid more salary to cover their living costs as well. So it does tend to compound. It isn't always the case, but often it is. And finally, where are you thinking about working once you've graduated from medical school? Generally speaking, most of the programs we're going to talk about are going to be globally recognized. But let's say, for example, you've got a US passport, your family live in California, and you want to work in California after graduation. In that particular circumstance, we need to look at particular universities, because not all give you the ability to do residency immediately after graduation in California. And again, like I said before, be flexible with that, because things change over a 6-year period. No one knew in 2019 we were all going to be locked in our houses for effectively over a year to 2 years at different points, okay? But we were. Things change, you change. And that's the one thing I'll say about another benefit of studying abroad. It will change you. Studying medicine changes you. And it doesn't just change you as a person, it changes the title in front of your name, which says something about you to the rest of society. But it does change you as a person, and the way you perceive your role in society changes significantly. Most programs in Europe are actually traditional. We talked a little bit about that before. So irrespective of whether you go to the Czech Republic or Hungary or Bulgaria or Latvia or even Cyprus, most programs will follow a traditional curriculum, which is very theory-based. You'll study normal anatomy, normal biology, normal biochemistry, etc. And once you get to your third year, you'll then take the normal that you know and apply pathology to it. So you might have looked at the liver, and you might have looked at the normal anatomy, the normal physiology, the normal histology, the normal biochemistry of the liver. But then when you get to year 3, you're going to say, right, you know what a normal liver looks like and how it behaves. What happens when we, give that liver pathology, whether that be cancer, metastases through cancer, or whether that be alcoholic liver disease or cirrhosis. The lungs, what happens to the lungs with COVID, with emphysema, with asthma, with cystic fibrosis, etc. And gradually, that clinical relevance and that time in the clinical environment increases. And when you get to your 6th year, you've got a full internship year where you take your state exams. And at the end of that 6th year, if you've passed all your exams, got through your state exams, got the required credits, you graduate, and then you are the future doctor or dentist ready to get out there in the clinical environment, where you will then start to develop your career, specialize, and go on to have an illustrious career like Professor Brizman or any of the other graduates that we've seen leave medical school over the last number of years. And bear in mind, we've been supporting students since 2011. So we've seen hundreds of students graduate, and it's been fantastic to start going to those graduations, which started about 5-6 years ago, and then seeing the doctors now becoming the future specialists that they've become. I mentioned about where you want to work in your career. The thing with medicine is exams never stop. You're examined on a daily basis in an informal way by your patients asking you questions, by their family asking you questions. You'll also go through various exams as you go through specialization. But if you want to go and work in certain parts of the world, be prepared to take licensing exams, whether that be the USMLE, which is what you're going to require if you want to work in the US. If certain students, if you want to go and work in the UK, but there are some exams to take some licensing exams as you go through your progression into the medicine career. So, well, half an hour in, let's talk now really about how we'll you into medical school and how we negotiate what is a pretty complex set of procedures. Different universities have different methods to get you into university. Some will require supporting documentation, transcripts, reference, personal statements. Some require aptitude tests. Those who've applied to the UK or know about the UK will be used to something called a UCAT, BMAT, which is being phased out after this year. Other universities, for example, if you go into postgraduate medical school, will have the MCAT, for example, but various universities will adopt those principles. Some will have a university-specific entrance exam. So not a generic entrance exam, like the BMAT, for example. They'll have an exam that's specific. For some institutions, it's the entrance exam which governs if you're admitted. In others, they'll pair that up with an interview. And sometimes the score from both the exam and the interview go together, form a decision. In other cases, the exam is to get you to the interview. It's like the first hurdle, and the interview itself is what then gets you the offer for medical school. In some cases, like the UK and systems that are similar to the UK, to get you an offer. And if you meet certain conditions, i.e. you get certain grades at university, when your results come out, then you will be admitted to medical school. But different universities, as I said before, have different procedures, and our job is to help you negotiate your way through those procedures. Now, these are some of the universities we work with at Medical Doorway. If you go to our website, you will see a whole host of university options there, including the few we're going to talk about today. Now, related to a university similar to how we do things in the UK, you've got something like the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. This is a fantastically equipped medical school, an island which is predominantly English speaking. Okay. This program, as you'll see from a tuition fee level, is significantly cheaper than what you will experience, say, if you are applying to the UK. It's less than half the price of studying in the UK. You'll pay €18,000 per year for the first 3 years a year, and then €22,000 a year per year for years 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, this is quite a distance from Brazil, but quite close to some of our students from the Middle East. You will potentially have the opportunity to do placements in the UK or the USA, depending on your immigration status. And overall, you'll find it's a lot more accessible in terms of grade requirements compared to, say, the UK. It's giving you a possibility here, which is similar to the UK in terms of you apply, have an interview online, and then based on your grades that you get at high school, you will then be made a final offer to study at University of Nicosia. That's just one option. But if you move to more continental Europe, and we'll talk about the Czech Republic, which is one of the safest in the whole of the Union and Schengen, here it's different. In the case of first faculty, admission is on the basis, and the other Czech universities, the basis of an entrance exam. That's how your decision is based. And this picture right above here, to give you an idea, Professor Brizman will know this picture because he's just off site, actually. He's next to Yitka, who's wearing yellow just there. This is one of our exams in the past for the Faculty of Medicine in Prague. This exam was in London. To give you an idea, these are the sizes of the exams. We even do ones that are bigger than this, okay? Okay, this is how popular these programs are. And in the case here, admit on the basis of the exam, and then if you pass the exam, you'll then be offered an online interview, which will then determine if you're admitted. And you take exams with Medical Doorway all over the world. I'm just scared looking at the number of places that we're running exams. It's now hit me that we're running in London, Hong Kong, the UAE, and in 2024, Brazil, Qatar. If you wanted to go to the Czech Republic, there are exams and institutions online as well. All of those exams are going to be multiple choice. They're to determine if fundamentals of science knowledge to get you ready for the first year of medical school. But that's only part of it. The interviews will determine if you've got the aptitude and the ability to think to be a self-directed learner at medical school. A classic example of an interview is something like an MMI, where they're going to assess you different aspects of your ways of thinking to determine if you've got the ability to perhaps balance arguments to come up with a rational solution. Some interviews in the case of the program below here, third faculty, they base it on a panel interview, and then they'll ask you to read an article and then discuss the article and look at the critical points in that particular article and determine if you've identified those points and can you then debate them. The purpose of the interview is not to test your academic knowledge. It's there to determine if you have now the personal attributes to study at the university and then become a good doctor or dentist afterwards. Our job is to get you ready for those interviews and entrance exams. So if we refer to Professor Brizman's faculty, this is the first faculty of medicine in Prague. This is considered the gold standard in continental Europe teaching in English. It's the world's 10th oldest medical school. I did correct that. I had it down as 11th on this slide. I've now been told off and corrected it to 10th. It's one of only a small number of programs where the English program is accredited by all the states of the US, including California. For those of you that might be online that have a US passport, okay, you do have the ability to get your US federal loan. And I've got applicants already this year who are federal loan applicants ready to apply and take exams in other parts of the world. But if you are in Brazil, have a US passport, this university should be on your list. And again, I've got an Irish student who's also got a US passport and they're applying as well, and they'll be taking their federal loan to come and study in Prague. It is slap bang in the middle of Prague. And Prague is a stunningly beautiful city. It truly is. It was fortunate that it avoided bombing in World War II. It was occupied, but avoided the bombing, which obviously meant that a lot of the historical buildings in Prague are still there to date. And if you look at what you're getting a world top 1% medical school in the center of one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, in one of the safest countries in Europe, with global recognition, and you're getting that for $26,000 US a year. Compare that to the UK, where you're paying £50,000 and you'll be in a part of London, which perhaps, and Professor Brizman is originally from London, you wouldn't really feel safe walking around at night, okay? In Prague, you're never going to find that as a problem. In fact, they don't even have barriers on the metro system, because everyone just pays for it because it is so cheap. In fact, I think students get an annual travel permit in Prague for about 60 to 70 US dollars, maybe even less than that, actually. But you get full unlimited travel for that for the year. We have been driven by students. So many students want to apply to this faculty, and that's why we're running these exams in Hong Kong, London, Qatar, UAE, and on the 16th of March in Sao Paulo. Many of the schools that have been in touch with us have started asking us, can we run the exam in Sao Paulo? And that is the plan. And should sufficient number of students apply, we will be there in March next year, ready for you to take the first step to enrollment at what is one of the most prestigious and illustrious medical schools in the world. In fact, the actual faculty, Charles University, being one of the oldest universities in the world, I refer to it as the European Oxford or Cambridge, because it's got this history of collegiate education similar to the likes of Oxford and Cambridge, and it does have close relationships historically with Cambridge University as well. In fact, a lot of medical students during World War II were evacuated from Prague when the Nazis occupied Prague to study in Cambridge and got their degree in both names of Charles University and Cambridge. I think it was Cambridge, not Oxford. Am I right, Eitan?
Actually, it was both. Both took them in, and we have a very close relationship with Cambridge, with Oxford, St Andrews. In fact, early today we had Professor St Andrews here with me in Prague. We do maintain really good relationship.
I believe the faculty has very close research links with Brazil as well.
That's right. I've got some very good dental colleagues who come and visit us quite often to teach dentistry and do research with us. I have some very good medical colleagues. Just to explain, I'm dual qualified as both a doctor and a dentist for my sins. We have a Brazilian teacher in physiology department, and they go every year to Brazil to also give lectures and conferences back in Brazil. It's a place that's very close to our hearts.
Yeah. So we'll crack on. There's a number of questions. I see Professor Brizman answered them, which is great, but we will read some of them out and the answers as well, because we want everyone to hear about those questions. Now, for those of you that are looking at other options, we do have other options. I'm not just going to talk about one faculty here today. Let me just close the Q&A feature, which I've opened up on my screen, and now I can't see my presentation. Just down the road, about an hour and a half away, we've got a beautiful town called Hradec Králové. Say that after a few. It's something I've got used to, but it's a sister faculty. I said Charles University and first faculty was like an Oxbridge or Cambridge. It is actually structured in the same way. It's made up of different colleges. And an hour and a half away, in a small, quiet, walkable town, which has actually got the cleanest air in some of the cleanest air in the European Union, actually, you've got the beautiful town of Hradec Králové. They have a program, a medical program, and a dental program, very similar in terms of its curriculum outline to the first faculty in Prague. The difference is it's effectively a very similar degree, comes from Charles University, but the difference is you're not living in a capital city. You're living in a small university town, around about 10% the size of Prague. That comes with it a few things. If you're not the person who wants to commute on the underground to your university every day, this is a place to look for. If you want somewhere where you can just take your bike around the park, straight, and then go to lessons straight away, this is a place to look for. If you're looking for a wild, big city, it's certainly not the place to look for. But also it does benefit because you get a slightly lower tuition fee. So we're now down to, I've said pounds here, sorry, it should say dollars, about $17,200 or $17,600 US dollars. I will change that. That's dollars, not pounds, everyone. So don't sue me for that. Then you will find that you'll save in money in tuition fees and also save money in living costs as well, because you're not in the capital city. Therefore, you'll find it a lot cheaper to live. So if you are on a more limited budget, but you still want a Charles University degree, Professor Emil Rudolph and his colleagues there will be delighted to welcome you, because Professor Rudolph himself has got a great affinity for Latin America. In fact, he spent his summer traveling across Central America from Nicaragua to Guatemala, etc., and has worked in the United States and Brazil before. And in this case, you haven't got to turn up for the exam because there's an online exam on the 14th of May. So that could be perhaps something you may consider as a backup to the faculty in Prague. Another option is, and Professor Brizman won't mind because these faculties are all very well known to Professor Brizman, would be something like Palacký University in Olomouc in the Czech Republic. The second oldest medical school, it's 1592, and that building clearly isn't from 1592, but the university can trace its history back to that. Here, you're looking at even cheaper tuition fees, about $13,500. And the reason I bring this up is, yes, we do have online exams. We do have various dates for those online exams, but you don't have to go to the world's biggest city to get a world-class education, because the surgeon who led the USA's first ever face transplant graduated from Palacký University, and I've got many doctors and dentists who graduated from this university in the past, as well as the faculty in Prague as well. So really, you do have a whole wealth of opportunities in addition to those ones I've talked about, which you can find more about on the Medical Doorway website. Now, you might be asking, okay, we know about these universities, we know about the tuition fees, but what is it going to cost me to apply? The good news is our job is to try and keep those application costs down. All universities will have an application fee, all right? It can vary. So Palacký University is around about $90. The first faculty of medicine is around about $270. The faculty in Hradec Králové, again, is about $90 there, something like that. They charge it in different currencies and the local currencies, but I've just given you a rough estimation. Then there'll be an entrance exam fee. Now, the idea is the entrance exam fee negates the need for you to travel to Europe. So the exam fee in the case of Brazil is £250, British pounds, and the application fee is around about £250, so £500 altogether. You'll have to pay the £250 equivalent to the university anyway, irrespective of how you take the exam. But there's no way you could fly to Prague, live in Prague in a hotel, and take the exam in Prague for £250. Our job is to try and keep your costs down so we can maximize the number of universities we work with, you apply to maximize your chance of going to medical school. Because if you wanted to apply to the first faculty and had to fly to Prague, that's going to be a significant financial investment for no guarantee that you would potentially get admitted. So all the fees of all the exams are on the Medical Doorway website. What I will do is show you a part of that website in a moment where you can actually see the cost of the exams and apply. Once you've been admitted to medical school, there will be some costs. I think, Alex, if you've got you just raise your hand. If you've got a question, type it into the Q&A feature, and then we'll be able to kind of go over that at the right opportunity. There will be some costs regarding your documents. So if you need to apply for a visa, if you don't have a European Union citizenship, you will have to get some documents ready from Brazil or wherever you are. There will be some expenditure that you have to lay out for that in terms of translation or even applying for the documents. The final thing you will do to enroll at the university is have your high school diploma equivocated by the local authorities at the university. They report to the Czech ministry. That is not a difficult process. You just need to make sure you've done it in good time before you enroll, because if you don't have it done, you can't enroll. And then some universities, but not all, might require a deposit from you to reserve your seat in medical school. But all of these costs will be clear to you once you've been applied and once you're getting ready for applications to medical school. And the final thing is then become that future doctor or dentist. Once you've got admitted, let's get you out there. That will be getting your accommodation arranged, applying for your visa, getting you health insurance, doing all the procedural things early to make sure that when you arrive in position, you can get started straight on your studies. If you perhaps have got the ability to travel to Europe visa-free, or you've got your visa early, or you've got an EU passport, perhaps you can then go and visit the university in the town. One of our students in Prague at the moment, he actually was from Hong Kong, but had an EU passport. He spent his first month over August interrailing around Central Europe. He based himself in Prague, but then started traveling around Europe. Fantastic, because his acclimatization to life in Central Europe was done before the lessons started. And he's now, I think, fifth year. Roman is fifth year now, or fourth year, so he'll be graduating soon as well. And the one thing that he will always advise is the earlier you can get out there and experience the city, get used to the metro system, get used to the places, get used to find the right food that you like. The sooner you do that, the sooner you will adjust and become a local and adjust to the new kind of cultural environment that you are going to be based in. And I'm going to bring this picture up. And why do I like this picture before we get finished and ready for question and answers? On this picture, you will see students I worked with years ago. You'll know it's years ago. I'm carrying a few more pounds in this picture. And also, I don't have the facial hair. So this was a good while ago. To give you an idea, we've got a girl in the front here, Taranpreet, graduated from the first faculty last year. Alla, here next to her, graduated from Palatsky University last year. This girl here, I mentioned beforehand, someone who went to the Czech Republic, studied and stayed there. There she is. If you don't believe me, go to my graduation videos on our YouTube channel and you'll see all of them on that graduation video. And we've got Atta, a dentist, now working in London. Abdullah, a doctor, working in London. This guy at the back here, a dentist, working back in the UK. We are littered with graduates who've gone out, studied, come back, including the 77 students that graduated from this university here. Now, they're not all students. You'll see parents. I appreciate that you as parents, if you're on this webinar, you will be anxious. You'll be the first time that you perhaps let your son or daughter go so far away to study independently at a huge university onto an important program. We're here for you as well. We will speak with you. We will counsel you through this process, and we will tell you the best way to support your son and daughter in their journey to medical school. I'm a parent. I'll be preparing for that in a few years from now. I know what you're going through, and we'll be there to support you through that process. So, if you need any more information, we've gone on for a good 50 minutes, Eitan, so that's actually one of the longer presentations I ever do, and I plan to cut this one down. Anything that you need, you can go to medicaldoorway.com. You can even book an individual Zoom call with myself or one of the team on the website. We do it every Monday and Wednesday. So tomorrow, if you want to jump on a Zoom call, we still have availability for tomorrow, you can do that. Alternatively, email ben@medicaldoorway.com. If you want to look at this webinar again, you can go to our YouTube channel. It will be there, as well as all the previous webinars that we've done. So what I'm going to do before we finish off and I hand over to Eitan, if there's anything else he wants to say, is I'm going to pull up the Medical Doorway website, and I'm going to show you what you would need to do to make your application to medical school. Give me a second. There we go. Right. So let's just accept the cookies and let's share the screen again. So for those of you that are perhaps from Latin America and you wanted to know a bit more about the exam in Brazil, all of our entrance exams are right here under the exams tab. If you tap them there we go. All of our exams, and you'll see the Brazil exam is right here for Sao Paulo, Brazil, March the 16th. And there you'll see, we charge in pounds because we're a British organisation, but everything's equivocated to make sure we're paying the university the 250 application fee. Perhaps you've read this and you want to go through it in more detail, you can get in contact with us. Alternatively, click the application form and you'll see that this is the application form for Brazil. And we've got the first Faculty of Medicine with its exam in Brazil, as well as Palatsky and Charles Kralova, which have online exams. This application form takes you no more than 10 minutes to fill in, and then we'll be in touch with you about the application and any of the documents we need. If you want more information on the different universities, they're all listed here, every single one. This website has all the information you need. And alternatively, if you need something, okay, you can go to book an inquiry, book a consultation. You'll find that link at the top of the website. So I can't see it because of the way this is done, but you'll find it right there, book a consultation, and you can book a Zoom call with us there. So I'm happy to stop sharing my screen and let's turn over. Eitan, before we address the questions, if there's anything else that you want to ask, please now, or say, I should say, please come in, because we're going to have plenty of questions that have already been dealt with and more coming in.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant presentation. And just to echo what you're saying, I think it's very important that the students, the parents, you choose the faculty that's right for you. Of course, we'd love you all to apply for us, but we can't accept you all. We are a state public university. We have a limitation on the number of seats we can take. Ben, if you'd like, I've got a small, quick presentation I can give to...
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. We've got time, and I'm going to start going through some of the questions now, okay, and then prepare some of the answers.
I will share my screen. Let's see if that works. Can that be seen?
We can see your presentation there, yeah.
Brilliant. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Eitan Brizman. I'm the Vice Dean of First Faculty of Medicine of Charles University, based here in Prague in Czech Republic. Ben has given, I think, already a very nice introduction to you all about us, but I thought I'd very briefly just talk a little bit more specifically about our faculty and why we're here, why I'd love you to apply for us. So I'm originally from London. As Ben mentioned, I'm dual qualified as both a doctor and a dentist. I studied my medicine here in Prague when I had some hair many years ago. I graduated, went back to the UK, worked in Britain, stupidly fell in love with head, neck and face surgery, with which, because the mouth is such a large area that we work on, so in the UK, as many other countries, you have to be dual qualified as both a doctor and a dentist. So I studied dentistry at King's College, became a consultant surgeon at the Royal Free Hospital in London, and then 6 years ago came back to Prague. About just over 3 years ago, made me the Vice Dean for international students. So Prague is the heart of Europe. We would put a pin in the map of EU of Europe. It would be the epicenter would be about 10 kilometers outside of Prague. The borders, everything nearby is very close, very quick to get to. Berlin, in this picture you can see up there, is about 3.5 hours by train or by car. Vienna, about the same, right in the very center of Europe. 4 climates. In fact, just now it's turning pretty cold. This morning it was 0 Celsius. Bizarrely, about 2 weeks ago, or just over a week ago, it was 20 degrees Celsius here. Not quite normal weather. And depends on your belief of global warming or not. But I certainly think there's a big change happening. Population of Czech Republic is about 10.5 million people, and it's mostly atheist country. Prague itself is ranked as the 3rd safest city in the world at the moment, and Time magazine recently boasted it to be the most beautiful city in the world. It's certainly affordable to live in. It has very good, efficient public transport, and as Ben said, it's about $60 or $70 for a year of non-stop use of the metro, the underground, the trams, the buses, the trains, night, day, non-stop. And unlike in Britain, where we have the wrong type of rain or the wrong type of snow or leaves the track, the Czech efficiency of public transport is second to none. It is always on time, always working. Charles University itself. So, as Ben mentioned, we are the 10th. Ben, you weren't wrong, in fact, when you said about 11th, but it's the 11th oldest university, 10th oldest medical school, to be pedantic about it. So we are the 10th oldest medical school in history, back to 1348, 675 years old. And there was originally 4 faculties, of which medicine, we were 1, law, theology, and arts were the 4 faculties. Now there are 17 faculties of Charles University, 5 of which are medical, and we're based not just in Prague, we're based also in 2 other cities, Pilsen and Hradec Králové, as Ben mentioned. The university as a whole, all 17 faculties, we come in the top 250 of all universities in the world, and we're ranked highest in Central Eastern Europe. The medical school, we're in the top 1% of all medical schools globally. I think we're ranked 17th in the world in clinical medicine, and it goes on. The university has about 50,000 students, of which about 10,000 are international and represented by more than 130 different countries, students studying here at the university. We love this because we have such a multicultural atmosphere. It's a real metropolis that you get to meet every kind of person you can imagine. And we all live in this beautiful academic milieu here in Prague, studying together, living together, working together. Our medical faculty is a big medical faculty. It's the biggest of all the medical faculties, the largest in Central Europe. We have about 4,500 students in our faculty alone, of which about 3,500 are studying either medicine or dentistry. And we have two parallel courses for medicine and dentistry. One is taught in the Czech language, one is taught in the English language. So both medicine and dentistry in Czech language, or medicine or dentistry in English language. In our English language, we call it English Parallel, English language course, we have about 800 students. We put down in here 800 international students. It's not quite accurate, because if I was really pedantic, we actually have Czech students who study in English or English course, international course as well. Predominantly those who are looking to have more of an international career upon graduating. And we have about 1,500 teaching staff at our faculties, so it works out about 3-to-1 staff to student ratio. So although we are a very large faculty, we maintain that intimate atmosphere with our students, a very close relationship with our students, with about a 3-to-1 staff-student ratio. We are a historic faculty, but with our history, that history gives us experience in how to teach and how to maintain our reputation at the highest of levels across the globe. And that's why we still are the top 1% of all medical schools globally. And as Ben mentioned, we are accredited in all 50 states of the US. We're on one of only 20 medical schools outside the US to be California state accredited. With that, again, as Ben mentioned, we have the US federal loan scheme. There is the GI Bill for the US. We have in Germany, German citizens can get 100% tuition fee funding. From Israel, the same. From Sweden, the same. From various other countries, they give full funding for their students to study at our faculty. Even after Brexit, even after Britain has left the EU, they still recognise the quality of our degree. And Czechia is known, Czech Republic as a whole, Czechia is known for the highest quality of education. It's one of its famous factors is it creates high quality education, high quality medical healthcare. And because of that, not only do we of course have recognition throughout the EU, even in Britain after Brexit, there's automatic full registration with either GMC, General Medical Council, or GDC, General Dental Council, upon graduating, no matter where you come from. And often the hospitals and the dental conglomerates, the groups of dental clinics, like Bupa and My Dentist, they literally fight over our dental students from about second, third year to persuade them to come and work for them rather than someone else. We are based in the very, very center of Prague. We have a huge campus right in the heart of Prague, in the middle of the tourist areas. Research is very important to us because we're a high output research facility, and you'll be actively encouraged to do research during your undergraduate studies. Many of our students assist in publications, get their name in publications, which is very important for your career, getting jobs later. And we occasionally have some brilliant students who will be first authors on very high impact journals, even whilst as an undergraduate student. There are many benefits to us. The student community is a very close community. We have MedSoc, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later on, which is the student union for students, by students, about the students. Medical simulation is vital in medical education, medical dental education, and we have a very modern, high-tech simulation center which you'll be interacting with from the very first year. We also believe in global education and international education, so we actively encourage you, even though you may be studying medicine or dentistry with us in Prague, which may be abroad from your native home, we will still actively encourage you to do Erasmus, which is European-backed exchanges, or IFMSA, International Federation of Medical Students, or we have direct contacts and contracts with hospitals and universities across the globe that can enable you to do whilst you're an undergraduate student rotations abroad. And regards to USMLE, our USMLE rates are second to none. If we go back the last 3 years, 3 years ago we had 100% pass on first attempt of all our students taking the USMLE. 2 years ago it was 94%. This year was 96.2%. To put that in perspective, Harvard averaged at 93%. So we beat the Americans at their own game. And as Ben also touched on, last year we had, I think, 4 students on full scholarship postdoc to Harvard, 2 to Yale, 1 to Cornell, 1 to Brown's, and so on and so forth. So when you graduate from us, the world is your oyster. The courses we offer: medicine is a 6-year MD, Doctor of Medicine. Dentistry is a 5-year DDS, BDS, whichever you want to call it. And we have multiple PhD programs taught in English. We even do what's called an MD PhD program, where you can do a PhD whilst you're studying your doctorate. And we've got a new course starting this year of addictology, which is a world-leading course from a renowned Professor Miofsky in the speciality of addictology itself as a master's program. Applying, honestly, the best advice I can give you is speak to the Medical Doorway team. You can apply direct to the university, but the assistance that Medical Doorway give to, and the guidance is worth its weight in gold, especially as you don't pay for it. So it's really the most valuable. They guide you through every single step. The university application system opens officially in December, when we can start uploading the applications onto the system. But speak to Medical Doorway now, to give them your details, and they will do the work for you with the laborious bureaucratic system of the...
Just to let everyone, we've already got applications from students for London, for Dubai. We've just had our first one come in today for Doha. So it's, you know, and we've also had the first one come in from Hong Kong who's confirmed. So the thing is, if the earlier you apply, the sooner we can start you on the exam prep. And with any exam prep, little and often is the better way to do that. The last thing you want to be doing is cramming information in the last bit, because the exam, while it is knowledge-based, requires you to think. It's not just recall. So it is important, the earlier we apply, the better. It also means we can also advance things, like if we can even start getting you ready for things like migration visa procedures, because with the situation going on in various parts of the world, governments are very, very particular on dealing with visa applications, and those things can take quite a bit of time. The earlier we do, the better in every regard: application, visas, everything.
I agree, and you need to plan on a minimum of 3 months, really, for your visa, if you need a visa. There was a question earlier about if they have a European passport. If you have a European passport, brilliant, because you don't need a visa that way, and it makes your life, everyone's life, a lot easier. But for those who don't have a European EU passport, then that visa process, because of all the checks that they're doing, we see what's going on in the world right now. We know also from the Ukraine crisis that Czech Republic took in a lot of Ukrainian refugees, and we still do. We're still trying to help out as much as we can, and everything's going on in the Middle East. So there is a lot of security checks to make sure, and this is why Czech Republic is the 3rd safest country in the world, so the city in the world, and it's total freedom in Prague, in Czech Republic. So you can walk around entirely free. Like Ben mentioned, on the underground, there's no checks, there's no barriers stop you getting into the underground or the trams, the buses. I grew up in London, and as Ben said, there are places in London I wouldn't walk around in the daytime. But in Prague, even at nighttime, it's totally safe to walk around. Male, female, anything in between, anything else around. You're not judged as it's Bohemia. It's totally open and free here. I also do recommend coming to Prague. Come and visit Prague. The fact that beer is cheaper than water here is always a pull for the students. But it's the most wonderful open city. So please come and visit the city. Come and see if you like it. Come and visit the faculty. We'll give you a tour around. We'd love to show you around. And you get to meet the students as well as the staff to see what it's really like. How do you get in? So the application system, unfortunately, you can only take the admissions exam one time per academic year. So please make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you've done your preparation. Speak to Medical Doorway. There was a question earlier about preparation. Medical Doorway have various aids for you in getting you ready, or they can guide you on preparation for it. But the level of the written paper, the knowledge base of the entrance exam, is set at kind of IB A-level standards. The first part is this written paper. Well, sorry, the first part is when you do your application, you submit a personal statement, which is why should we choose you over the next 8-9 applicants? What is it about you that is wonderful, like the Olympic gold medals that you won, or your leadership skills, or the voluntary work that you know that what you're doing, you understand medicine or dentistry because you've done work experience, all these wonderful things about you. Then there's the written paper. So the written paper is a single best answer, multiple choice exam, positively marked, which means if you get the question right, you get a point. If you get the question wrong, you don't get a point, but you don't lose any points. And we have 3 papers: biology, chemistry, and physics. Usually, if we're doing a live seminar lecture, I say physics, the crowd goes, oh, but I'm doing maths, I'm not doing physics. Physics is vital for medicine. You will use it every day of your life, from the x-rays, the radiographs that you're taking of your patients to understand how x-rays work, or MRI scans, or anything like that. If you're an orthopedic surgeon and you're putting in a hip implant, aren't there torsion forces required to understand the biomechanics of various treatments and medications? So physics is really, really critical. The beauty is physics is it's applied maths. So if you don't study physics, please don't worry. You've still got time. You can brush up on it. And again, please speak to Medical Doorway and they will guide you on what to study, where to study, resources for it. But also the good news is that the written exam is a conglomerate score of your biology, chemistry, physics together. So if you are brilliant at biology and not so brilliant at physics, you can make up for your relative lack in physics by having really good biology and chemistry scores. It's that combined score together that when you pass, you move through to the next stage, which is the oral exam, the interview, which we do MMI, multiple mini interviews. This we do via Zoom, and it's usually done within about a week of the written exam, and we'll give you a time. We have various interviews across the daytime here in Prague, so to make it not too late or too early for you in Brazil, because what we want is for you to be at your peak, you to be at your best when you're presented to us. We can really find and cherry pick the best applicants to be at our faculty. And then welcome. So from a perspective of those questions about internet IB results that are required, or A-level results, or other things, we take students from all across the globe and from innumerable different types of high school ending exams. And we want to be fair, equitable and fair. So for me to ask for, I don't know, 43, 42 points in IB, or 3 A's at A-level, or CBSE, or SATs, it's not fair because there's no exact equivalent. Our entrance exam and our interview is the same for the whole globe. So I don't care what your grades are, because if you can pass our exam and our interview, you're good enough to study at our faculty, and we believe that you will be able to succeed at our faculty and succeed beyond in your career, because our aim for you, for our students, is to help you achieve the maximum of your potential. And we see medical school as not just teaching you medicine or dentistry, but university for us is about life education. So we teach you about how to study, not what to study, but how to study. So you will be successful not just at medical school, but you'll be successful for the rest of your lives and careers beyond. We are based on a practical system where we believe in giving you building blocks of information, and we build it up as we go through the years. So for medicine, in the first year, you'll be starting with things like anatomy, which is what things are, the map of the body, where they are, embryology and genetics. And in the second year, we move on to physiology, which is not what the things are, but how they work. And then third year, we move on to pathologies, when things are broken, pathophysiology, when things are not working properly. But saying that, from the first year, you'll be getting patient interaction. You'll be doing nursing, you'll be doing all sorts of other bits and pieces with first aid and things with patients. And that increases and increases as you go through the years. And even from that first year, you'll be doing medical simulation in the simulation center. So as I mentioned earlier, simulation education is absolutely critical because we want you to make mistakes. We want you to make mistakes in the simulation center where you can learn from your mistakes without causing harm to patients. Medical simulation does not replace bedside education. It's an adjunct to it. So it doesn't, you don't do any less bedside education, but when you do the bedside, touching, prodding, feeling, examining live humans, you've made those mistakes before on a simulation center. You've learned everything from there. So when you go to the live patients, you are efficient with your learning and communication with them. And dentistry is intense. It is a lot of work, and dentistry especially, you need to have really good hand-eye coordination and manual dexterity. So you're doing a lot of preparation in the laboratory, but halfway through the second year, you're going to start doing working on live patients. And remember, when you're doing dentistry, it gets quite nervous because you have a very sharp drill that's moving very fast in your hands, touching tissue which can't be replaced. So that's why we do a lot of practice in the labs on we call them phantom heads, on these mannequins, these high-tech mannequins, before you then go in your second year to start treating live patients. Simulation of education mentioned earlier. Living costs, Prague is a great student city with just a fantastic student atmosphere. The pubs close when the last person leaves. There's every sport you can imagine. Czechs love their sports, and I think university life here is absolutely brilliant. Most importantly, or very importantly, we've got, as I mentioned, MedSoc is the medical student union, which is for medical and dental student union. It is run by students, for students, about students. It represents you. They do educational events, they do sporting events, they do cultural events, they do charity events. They'll give you workshops, they'll guide you with the buddy program from year one. In fact, they'll even, if you get in contact on their Facebook and Instagram and other social media, they'll interact with you now to help guide you and answer your questions all the way through. Amazing people. We have, of course, psychological support for those of you who medicine is difficult. It's very difficult in dentistry. So there'll be times when you may be feeling homesick, or you might have a breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Then we're here for you. We have a free service, which is totally anonymous, paid for by the faculty. But that's where our interaction ends, so that you don't have to worry about anything coming back to your record. We won't allow that at all. It's for your privacy, your anonymity, and to use as much as you want. And I mentioned also dormitories. We guarantee accommodation in halls of residence, the dorms, for all years of your study. It's guaranteed. Because our faculty is right in the center of the town, and because living costs are relatively low, and the dorms are often on the outskirts of town. So most of our students decide to flat share for almost the same price as dorms, but much nicer quality, living right in the tourist areas, right in the center of town, roll out bed into lecture halls and things. There's our dean, Professor Vakorka, in the center. Come visit us in Prague. Come contact us on our social media, and let's go through any more questions you have.
Yeah, what I want to say is the center of Prague, if you just take a look at it, there's YouTube and Instagram are filled with people who visit Prague. It is on the big tourist trail. If you look at, every time I go to Prague, and I've been to Prague countless times, I always take a walk across Charles Bridge, amazing 14th century bridge, and then a walk up the steps up to Prague Castle. Very good if you've had a heavy meal, because it's very good to burn the calories off. And then through the castle and down across the other bridge before I head back for a beer to recover. So it is a beautiful city. Right. Some of the questions, I think we've answered quite a lot of them, but so we can just skirt over many of them so people can hear them. People are asking about when does applications start? We've already started accepting applications. As I showed you before, there is a specific application form if you want to take the exam in Brazil. If you want to take the exam in London, there's one for the UK, one for Czech Republic, one for Hong Kong, one for Qatar, one for Dubai. All the exam forms, all the forms to apply for the exams are all there. We're open now. We've already got students starting to do their prep. You can go to medicaldoorway.com. Someone's asked about how to get started. It's very simple. Medicaldoorway.com, you'll find lots of links to application forms for different universities, all the information about the exams and costs. Dentistry is 5 years, and medicine is 6. And someone said regarding difficulty, is dentistry or medicine harder, and for what reason? My answer to this is a little bit strange. I don't believe either subjects are hard as long as you're motivated and disciplined. I always say it's medicine and dentistry is not what you know now, it's what you do when you enter the university, when you enter medical school. Okay, that for me is what it is, because some of the content you will learn, you will never have touched at any point before you enter medical school. It's voluminous. There is a lot. And if you're motivated and more importantly disciplined, you will get through it. In fact, people get scared about anatomy. I don't know about you, Eitan. I was always enthralled. I find anatomy logical. The body it organizes itself in a very logical and efficient way. And there are ways that you can learn the anatomy. I don't know what you would say about that.
So look, I'm a surgeon, so I'm a little bit biased. For me, anatomy is a map. It's my my Waze, my TomTom, my Google Maps to knowing that I'm going the right direction, doing the right things. Ironically, though, I hated head, neck, and face anatomy because it was just ridiculously complicated, and of course, that's what I specialised in. I think it's a little bit horses for courses, and especially, I think that question of dentistry versus medicine, which one's harder, is a brilliant question, especially having done both of them. It depends on what sort of person you are. So I studied medicine first, and I became a surgeon, and I was working as a surgeon, I was doing operating. And then I studied dentistry, and I thought I was a reasonable surgeon. And when I did dentistry, I realized the level of manual dexterity required for a dentist is far beyond that an average surgeon needs. Because I've been fortunate, I've never had any fillings, but I've made thousands, as I'm sure you can imagine, from the dentistry. And to do an accurate filling, for those of you who've had fillings, you know it's got to be within a fraction of a millimeter, because you can feel a hair, if you've got any, you can feel a hair stuck between your teeth, which is micrometers. So you have to be able to create a filling, a restoration, that is that accurate to within micrometers. And so when I studied dentistry, in fact, my surgery became so much better, my quality of surgery, because I learned the manual dexterity of surgery, of dentistry. So I think for dentistry, it's got many advantages. It's a very practical specialty, whereas medicine doesn't have to be. Medicine, it's very much about communication skills. It's also about having knowledge of different things. If you're become a physician, then you don't need that manual dexterity. It may not be something you enjoy. Dentistry, you are your own boss when you graduate very often. Whereas in medicine, you go through years of different levels within the hospital training and hierarchy to do that. So I find them two very different specialties. I think it is worthwhile doing, if you're not sure, doing work experience in both. For me, one similarity between the two of them, which I really love, is in dentistry, a patient comes in pain, and they leave and they are without pain. You have resolved their pain, you've made them better, helped them with that. And the same for surgery for me is that the patient comes into me with a problem and I can fix it with my own two hands, and they leave and it's better. I was never clever enough to be a physician. They do all sorts of magical stuff with medications. That was always beyond me.
Okay.
There's a question about... Sorry.
Go ahead, and I was just going to, people are asking questions about admission criteria. I just want to clarify something here on this one, because it's quite important. You do need to graduate from high school, whether that be with UK A levels, the Brazilian diploma, the US diploma with or without APs, the IB diploma or the CBSE, you need to graduate from high school because you need to have a qualification which confers eligibility to enter university. The difference is, say, compared to the UK, is there is no specific grade requirement that you need to get. So you don't need 3 A's at A level or a 4.0 or a 3.7, I've forgot the term now, GPA, or you don't need 40 points on the IB. You need to graduate, but there's no specific grade requirement. Your decision on admission to Charles is all down to the performance on the entrance exam. If you pass the entrance exam, but don't graduate with the IB diploma or equivalent, you're not going to be enabled to enroll at the university in September because you need to have a qualification that gives you the right to enter university. Okay.
That's right. So from our perspective, we used to have grade requirements, but it was just shooting ourselves in the foot because we have about 120 people on a team to analyze, create this specific entrance exam, admission system, let's call it, the exam, the interviews for you all. So if you're able to pass that, then you deserve a place here. It's set at an IB A-level standard, but we no longer specify any grades. You just must pass, you must complete and do it with the best of your skills, get the best grades you can in your IB or high school exams. But I don't care what grades you get, I care that you pass our admission system.
And the other thing is, someone's asked about preparation for the exam. We provide a preparation system, and we're about to do a big update on that in November. Someone's asked about if there aren't sufficient students to do the exam. We expect to have significant numbers for the exam. We only really need to have 10 students to make it viable, okay? And in certain circumstances, we've done exams in new places with less than that as well. We have done that before, where based on new. We already have interest from Brazil. We already have the college counsellors. In fact, one's been messaging me while we've been doing this, and they're very impressed. And the number of students that we will get from a country as big as Brazil and the Latin American region is not going to be an issue, to be honest, okay? And the university, it says, has around about, I think, 150 to 160 seats, Eitan. Am I in the right ballpark figure there?
We accept about 150 for medicine and about 160 for medicine and about 40 for dentistry in our international program each year.
That is one of the larger enrollments. Different universities have different amounts of seats available. Okay. I'm going to skip through because it's nearly 11:30 in the UK, midnight with Eitan in the Czech Republic, and we did try to keep this to an hour and a half. Someone's asked about safety. Obviously, that's a very important question. What's been going on in the world? The Czech Republic is one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Germany borders to the north. You don't even need to show your passport to go over the border. You can take a train and get off in Berlin in 4 hours. Austria to the south, you're in the middle of the European Union, NATO, the Schengen zone. And as I said, it's one of the most peaceful countries you will find in the whole of Europe. And the Global Peace Index, if you search the Global Peace Index, the Czech Republic is the dark blob in the middle. The darker the blob, the more peaceful the country.
Question about USMLE.
Talked about the number of students. We talked about IB diploma. Oh yeah, that was what I was going to go on. Someone's asked about USMLE. Go ahead. Asked about how
so with USMLE, we do provide. Sorry, Ben. With USMLE, we do provide education for it. We actually provide for free of charge for the students AMBOSS, which is a medical platform which includes USMLE, a huge data bank of USMLE questions. If you can imagine, if we're getting such high USMLE results, and we're not talking about 1 or 2 people taking it, we're talking about 40, 50, 60 people taking it every year. And we're beating Harvard and the others at their own game with it. So yes, we don't specifically do our education based on USMLE, but you will get prep for USMLE. I think Ben's internet may have dropped out. So I'll carry on whilst we wait for Ben to rejoin. Can international students work in Prague after university? Yes, absolutely. It's actually a very good question because there are some universities, even in Europe, where that country in which you study doesn't recognize the degree that they give you. That's not the case in Czech Republic, not for my university, not for any of the universities in Czech Republic. It is a very high quality education. And we have every year, look, there's a shortage of doctors in Prague in Czech Republic as well. The dentists, they have a very high quality of dentistry here in Czech Republic, one of the best in the world. It's very well paid. Some dentists decide to stay here rather than going to the UK or elsewhere in Europe. For medicine, every year we have doctors. In fact, just this morning I had one of our graduates who I was helping getting a job in pediatric intensive care here in Prague and neonatology. So yes, absolutely, you could stay and work in Prague. The only prerequisite is you must have ample knowledge of Czech language, which if you're living here for 6 years and you just make a little bit of effort. We teach Czech for the first 3 years anyway, compulsory, and you have optional Czech continuing for the rest of your studies. If you make some Czech friends, you'll have absolutely adequate Czech to stay here and work in Czech Republic. Ben, are you back with us?
Give me 2 seconds.
Have I studied medicine in Italy? So I'll carry on with some of the questions.
Can you see everyone?
In Italy, there is. Sorry. Ben, are you there?
I'm back online.
I think Ben's having a little bit of technical problems. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's it. Great. I was about to answer for you about Italy.
My internet just dropped and I disappeared then. I'm glad the webinar carried on without me. So I know there was a question about working in Prague. Yeah, you know what? We do actually have students who've gone and remained in the Czech Republic after graduation and stayed there. Depends on if you're doing a language ability, but it's certain. Professor Brizman's back in Prague now, so something keeps taking students back to Prague. So I think we've dealt with all the questions. It is now midnight with Professor Brizman. So I want to say a huge thank you. I'm going to say a few thank yous. I'm going to say a few thank yous. I'm going to say a huge things ready for us in Brazil. So really, we need to say a huge thank you to, I'm going to second it, to Mariana, to Marta, to Helena at the different schools, also to Emily Dobson, who's doing a lot of work behind the scenes for us. And we're doing a webinar, a podcast with Emily and Sam next week for Global Minds Unleashed. Myself and Professor Brizman are doing that, and we're looking forward to that as well. This
I'm losing you again. I've ended
recording with the technicality. So
you've hung for me, Ben. So I'm going to just say also from our side, thank you all very much. Thank you all for arranging this. Thank you all for the brilliant questions. And I hope the questions don't end here. If usually when these webinars end within a few moments, I think, I should have asked that. Please get in contact, speak to Medical Doorway with the university. All questions are good questions. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you. I think it's time for us to climb the wooden hill. Bye to everyone.